Varaprasad Saab is here. He is having a lot of experience on diversified this cropping systems, and intensively he worked in this area, and now also he is supporting us almost as all aspects. Varaprasad Saab, each and every time he is supporting, he is having a lot of experience. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation, and kindly share your experiences about this diversified crop system, sir. Thank you, sir. Over to Varaprasad sir.
Thank you, madam. I just would like to ask the question of my very experienced and senior participants in this group. What do you think, how many crops we cultivate in India? You can always guess, or if you know, you can tell the correct number also.
Around 50 crops grown in UP, excluding horticultural crops, only agronomic or field crops, around 50, 52, sir.
Okay, including horticultural, maybe 100?
Excluding, yeah, maybe, that's maybe 100.
Okay, any other guess more than this? How many
around
crops?
75 to 80 crops are being cultivated in India, across India, yes.
Across India, it will be in the thousands, not hundreds. It will be thousands because each state has different of varieties, different things. And particularly in the hills, there is a vast diversity of the cropping systems. Even in Punjab, the rice, there are almost 20 types of rice. How can we say that?
Rajendraji, thank you very much. That's actually I enjoyed
varieties.
Yeah, not varieties, only crops.
But under coconut crop, more than 60 crops are grown in Tamil Nadu, sir. More than 60 types, but not in one field. In the coconut vast opportunity.
Very good. So it's almost all of you agree that around 100 crops are definitely cultivated in India, including all horticulture and other crops, not necessarily food crops, everything. Now, one more question. What is your estimation? How many green leaf vegetables, leafy green vegetables could be there, which are edible? Edible leafy green vegetables number. Just a number. Just to initiate the talk, I am asking. These are the only two questions when I move to presentation. Yeah.
I remember nearly 40. Nearly 40. But okay, not for my area, not for others.
Right.
It ranges from 40 to 50, sir.
Okay, good. So now let me tell you the correct, the records. What they show is 583 crops are cultivated in India. It's not just the food crops, the fiber crops, the industrial crops, the medicinal plants, the aromatic plants, whatever you cultivate. I'm not talking of the diversity. Whatever you cultivate in agriculture, there are 583 crops cultivated. And regarding greeny leaf vegetables, most of you are right. That's what we cultivate. But there is another category in leafy vegetables, which are called ethnic uncultivated greens. That means they don't cultivate it. They collect it and eat it. The document is above 500 species of plants are taken as greens, and it is also documented on the ethnic leafy greens. About 500 species are edible, they are available. And just before we really jump into this, I would like to say there are more than 127,000 species of plants, animals, and microbes in India. This is, of course, about 2 to 3 year old figure. Every year, about 200 species are added in the to this list. 17,500 species of higher plants. That means the flowering plants. 5,775 endemic to India. I think all of you know endemic means if we lose from India, we lost from the world. They are present only in India, then we call it as endemic to India. So there are almost 5,775 species of flowering plants which are endemic to India. Then 5,000 totally economically useful species. Economically useful, not necessarily food. 583 crop plant species are cultivated. Again, not necessarily food, fiber, oil seeds, for proteins, for fodder, for feed, for the industrial crops, for industrial chemicals, all put together, 583 crop plant species are cultivated. And we have about 1,000 wild edible plant species, out of which around 500, I said, are only ethnic leafy greens. So the kind of diversity that we have is very high. And then if you look at the other species, the entire Indian mass compared to the whole world is only 2%. But the 2% of this land mass of India has more than 12% of the diversity in terms of species of bacteria, viruses, algae, fungi, lichens, etc., insects. Very good diversity exists in India. We are losing very fast this diversity, and we would like to really take it up to conserve these things. And in case of the diversifying crop system, agroforestry is one of the best examples where the trees and the crops are grown together. And we also have the state-wise area coverage in the agroforestry is more than 25 million hectares. It is spread over 15 agroecological zones. And you can see the percentage of net sown area where this agroforestry is really practiced, where trees and crops are grown together. Thick green is the one where more area is present. So it's spread all over India. So the diversity is nothing new to India. We are practicing it. We have the technology, but we need to see how to really go about in reviving these systems. There are a large number of about 20 types of agroforestry systems are available: silviculture, horticulture, silvi-horticulture, pasture, then boundary plantation, block plantation, energy plantation, LA cropping, silvi-olericulture like vegetables, orchard, then silvi-pasture, forestry, shelter belts, windbreaks, live fence, sericulture also combined, apiculture, bees, extremely important, aqua and forestry, homestead. So very large number of systems are available which are in practice, and it's a good area where it is covered. But how we really improve the productivity and the economics of these systems, and how we can further move, covering all the wastelands and also bringing more good, stable, sustainable environment. So in addition to this, the agroecological principles are actually synergized into agroforestry, like what we talk now about the diversity. Diversity in terms of not only plant species, but also other species. And the most important point is co-creation of knowledge and sharing of the knowledge is agroecological principle, which is inbuilt into the agroforestry systems. The synergies in the system, the efficiency in the system, the recycling, the resilience not only to the climate, but also to the biotic stresses. The kind of methods that we use that we almost experience no adverse effect of biotic stresses in the one of best systems when we follow it through different ecosystems or agroforestry systems, which I already explained to you. There are human and social values embedded into these agroforestry systems. Culture and food traditions. Nowadays, it's globally talked. Are we now reviving the forgotten crops, forgotten foods, or also call them as future crops? So the diversity of the crops for different uses has been the focus, global focus in the recent past. Then if you see, there are several indigenous multi-cropping systems that are available in India. Then forgotten foods has attracted the United Nations attention. Now we have a separate projects coming on forgotten foods, or they are also called as future crops or potential crops. And most of the traditional knowledge available on these forgotten foods is being revived, and a lot of global funding is also coming forward for these forgotten foods. Then we have the indigenous multi-cropping systems. This is actually in a project, it was recently collected. And as you can see, that I am also surprised to see that our ancestors have developed the different multi-cropping systems in different parts of India suitable to their region, and there are a number of cropping systems which were in practice now either reduced to the minimum or disappeared from the cultivation practice. And some of these things I have listed here: Hangadi from the Rajasthan, Ramol from Gujarat, and Baradhanya from Maharashtra, Akkadisalu from Karnataka, and Ponam Puttu from Kerala, and Purdiya Krishi from Kerala, and then we have Purva from Jharkhand, Polya or Chaat from Madhya Pradesh, Sat Gajra from Madhya Pradesh, Pata from Maharashtra, and Misa Chasa from Odisha, and Navadanya from Anantapur of Andhra Pradesh. So you will be surprised to see the diverse cropping system is not our invention. It was there in our culture. It was there in India in different regions. There are different cropping systems across India, multi-cropping systems, ancient cropping systems that existed. Now the revived interest has come for the scientists to look at it, to study it, to give some scientific logic, to improve it, and to reintroduce it. So this most of the cases in these cropping systems, the row sowing is done and rows are grown. And what is the different? One main crop will be there, and other crops are supportive crops. Then, as you can see here, sorghum, maize, rice bean, pigeon pea, cowpea, pearl millet, finger millet, foxtail millet, little millet, ridge gourd. Several crops are sown. Each crop is actually designed to be a particular place and in a particular row, and that is convenient for not only for production and productivity, but also for harvesting and at different times. So these are the systems that existed in India. And if you can see Navadhanya cropping system, then again you have a main crop. Maybe it's a millet like jowar, bajra, ragi, or maize, and minor crops, minor millets like proso millet, foxtail millet, barnyard kodo are part of it. The groundnut, sunflower, cotton, maize, vegetables, they're all there, but they're limited to about 5%. And then you have the green gram, black-eyed cowpea, field bean, broadband. In addition to these things, you also have the additional crops with the limited, such as leafy vegetables, vegetables for family consumption. So you can see really a mix of the crops with a design. They are being cultivated to support the livelihoods of the farming family, and also to have some for the marketing to get other processes. So in this particularly in rain-fed and low rainfall regions of Rayalaseema region of Andhra Pradesh. So there is another system, multi-cropping system, Akkadisalu in Karnataka. It's also very gaining popularity. But again, Akkadisalu in different regions of Karnataka has different principles. It's not the same thing in the entire state. So there is a diversity within a cropping, multi-cropping system also, based on the soil type, the weather, and the other ecogeographical conditions. Then we have the Sat Gajra from or Utera Kheti, that is from Madhya Pradesh. Again, they have got a different design, as you can see, all around the field. In the middle field, there is a different multi-cropping system available there. Then we have the Polya cropping system, again in Madhya Pradesh. So this is again row cropping system like Navadhanya, and within a row also there is a diversity here, and all the cropping system details are being documented, and to find out whether we have any scientific principles behind, and it could be successful rather than leaving the land fallow. How we really take up this multi-cropping system in different regions have to be thought of. Then we have the Puryada Krishi from Kerala. Again, it's actually a multi-tier cropping system where we have the coconut, we have the cocoa, cassia, yams, the trees, the jackfruit tree, and of course within the farm the house is also there. This kind of diversity is available in Kerala, suitable to their region. Multi-cropping system does exist, and in Kerala, fortunately, still some of these practices are in vogue where it is happening. Then we have the, as I told you, Navadhanya from the Anantapur in the dryland, in the month of January, when there are start of the summer is there, you can see the lush green crops in the field, and this is very slowly picking up in the area, and more than 2,000 hectares resowing of this Navadhanya is there. There is a support from the government and from the WASSAN for not only for the study, but by supplying, giving access to the seeds that they require for the Navadhanya system. Navadhanya is not necessarily 9 crops. It is a name given to that, but multiple crops are there in this Navadhanya system also. Then we have, you have seen more than about 12, 15 known multi-cropping systems across India are available, which are based on some principles designed for a particular region. Now, whether it can be implemented across India, only one design? No, the answer is no, because based on your soil depth, soil type, soil topography, and also based on the rainfall, the amount of rainfall, the distribution of the rainfall, temperature of the soil, temperature in the canopy, air temperature, and sunlight available, multi-tier system or a multi-layer system, and the relative humidity in that area, how it will help in capturing the moisture from the soil as well as from the air, and also the farming system needs. It's not only cropping system, we should talk the farming system, which I think the Sadhana Saab will supplement later at the end, because I am not really familiar with the animal and fish component and poultry component. But the communities that need, they prefer the animals integrated into agriculture, the fish integrated into agriculture, the poultry integrated into agriculture. What are their food preferences, feed preferences for the cattle, and other local needs? So considering all these things, we have to design a multi-cropping or farming system for that particular region. So that region could be as small as a block or as big as 2-3 districts. So based on the ecogeographic conditions, a design has to be, special design has to come for the farming system as well as the cropping system. So in this case, what we can see, when we see the existing, the cropping system studied across India in the ancient times developed, we find lot of principles behind, lot of science behind that particular design. We are able to decipher the reasons why they have gone for this multi-cropping system for that region, how it is supporting the human health, how it is supporting the animal health, and how it is supporting the soil, how it is supporting the human health as well as the ecosystem. Like the air that we breathe should be pure, the water that we drink should be pure. So considering the nature's requirement, the multi-cropping systems are designed by our ancestors and practiced it. But when we have gone for monocropping and intensely we have promoted this monocropping, we lost many of these systems, and also along with that, losing that system, wisdom is also being lost. Now efforts are being made to revive these systems. So in addition to this, why actually diverse? What are the system benefits? This, if you see, study all those diverse systems, cropping systems and farming systems, we find that in the farm, one-time sowing and multiple harvests. If suppose there is only the northeastern or southeastern rainfall coming, then only one-time sowing. If some of the regions get both the monsoons, then you can have the multiple sowings also. But in most of the cases, one-time sowing and multiple harvests is one advantage. And crop harvest starts from September. From July, if you start sowing, within 3 months, you start getting some crops are harvested. And it continues up to February. That means that not only the farming family is kept busy, but their income, their food comes sustainably over the period of the year. It's not that one harvest. So one crop, one harvest process was not accepted in our ancient days. And these systems are very much helpful that continuous food and fodder supply throughout the year is one of the benefits. Then soil is covered till February or March by crops. That means hardly for about 1 or 2 months only they are exposed to the sun, again, which is a requirement for maintaining the soil health. So most of the period of year, the crops cover the soil. That means the soil health, soil moisture are protected because of the soil cover that happens. The soil will not be exposed to about 10 months and it is covered with leaf litter, and soil moisture also improves. Crops are designed in a way that these multi-tiered crop at different points in the time uses the sunshine that comes. Harvesting of the sunlight is also designed. It is inbuilt into the system. For over a period of 9 months, we can use this sunshine when the crops are in the active phase. And it makes use of most of the rainfall that comes in that area, in the rain-fed crops particularly. Then the pollinators, like the birds, the insects, they are actually increasing in the areas where this Navadanya or the agroforestry system happens. The pollinators, both birds and insects, increase in diversity and also in numbers. Recently, from a natural farming study, they have shown how many species of birds are visiting to a natural farm compared to a chemical farm. It's a published, a peer-reviewed journal, and then you got evidence that both the insects as well as the birds number and the species number also increases. So the whole system or the ethical principle in multi-cropping system is what do you give to the soil and what do you take from the soil. So this give and take mechanism is part of this, and there are many other system benefits are also in this particular system. And with reference to particularly soil benefits, when we talk about it, you can see that if there is physics, chemistry, and biology, if these are the three components of soil, this most of our last 50 years of our research as well as our replenishment of the soil is only chemistry. That means we are talking about the nutrients addition, nutrient mining and nutrient addition is focused. The other two parts, physics and biology, are completely forgotten. That's one of the reasons why soil health has gone down tremendously. So nobody is nowadays measuring the across India in the soil health card. If you see, most of the times you give what is the status of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, micronutrients, but never talk about the bulk density, porosity, infiltration rate, moisture holding capacity, aeration. These things are not become a common parameter in the soil health cards also. So they're mostly chemistry oriented soil health cards are promoted in a large number, and the physics of the soil is forgotten. When once the physics of the soil improves, the entire ecosystem changes. There is a more aeration, more moisture holding capacity, and there is less loss. Surface runoff is not there. The infiltration rate is expressed in terms of centimeters per second. When the water or rainfall occurs, how much infiltration occurs, how it will enrich the soil moisture. So these things significantly improved in these parameters when you do natural farming. We have the basic data already established, and we are expanding to all 13 districts of the Andhra Pradesh to collect this particular data in most of the locations, particularly rain-fed locations. We found that a significant improvement in the soil physical parameters, and that is contributing to the productivity and income of the farmers. Then when we come to this, the soil benefits with reference to chemistry. When we come to the chemistry, the nutrients available. So the most difficult or most common question against natural farming is where from the nitrogen will come. You are harvesting so much nitrogen and then unless you put it back through fertilizers, your crops are going to suffer. This is from the formal system, this is the kind of objection or question. It may not be objection, but a question that comes, which needs to be scientifically answered. So a lot of science is there behind in the natural farming. Nitrogen cycles or nutrient cycles operate completely differently in the natural farming. The most direct evidence is in case of natural farming, who have been practicing over 5 years. In Andhra Pradesh, for the last 15 years, it has started, and we have the fields where more than 5 years practicing natural farming farmers are there. And you don't find nitrogen deficiency, which is very visible when the fertilizer chemical fields, if you don't apply nitrogen, you can see the nitrogen deficiency symptoms in the crops. Whereas in this case, natural farming, you don't find any deficiency. But it requires some research how this nutrient mobility is happening, how the dynamics of the nitrogen nutrient cycle supply is happening in case of the multi-cropping systems needs to be seen. Then the solubilization. See, most of the things you have a lot of universities and research institutes have come up with cultures where bacteria, phosphorus solubilizing bacteria, potassium solubilizing bacteria or fungus, they are available in the soil and they get activated when you do natural farming, and then a continuous sustainable supply of the major macro and micronutrients happens when we follow the crop diversity and large number of crops are grown, then it happens. Then there are also artificial deficiencies created when we apply externally the fertilizers because of the interaction. Like if calcium presence may adversely affect zinc and iron uptake. So these kind of things does not happen in natural farming because they take sustainable supply and no artificial interaction will happen to prevent its supply to the plants. And then also there is a demand supply dynamics that is adjusted to cropping system needs. So it's not that if you apply it one time as a fertilizer, 40 kg, 60 kg, it's not that it is going to use continuous supply to the crop as per its requirement. So most of it, sometimes to the extent of 60 to 70% of it is lost through leaching, through evaporation, through fumigation, it is lost. Whereas there is no external application in natural farming and the diverse crops are there, which will actually synergistic help each other in supplying the nutrients. Some of the leguminous crops may fix the nitrogen from the air and supply to the other crops. And they are also taking from different depths of the root zones are different. So they take it up. So the nutrient use efficiency and efficient use of available nutrients naturally in the soil is extremely promoted in natural farming. Because of the diverse cropping, the requirements are not heavy at a particular time. It's distributed over a period of time and over a period of the column of the soil, it's actually distributed. Leaching is very less and the nutrient loss is almost minimal in case of natural farming fields. Then the pH balance is maintained. There are also instances where the problematic soils, either saline affected or acidic soils, natural farming with a design is helping them to improve the problematic soils, including the heavy metal infestation also can be tackled with the natural farming. The nutrient harvest happens from the different depths. So these are some of the soil benefits when we follow the multiple cropping systems. Then we also have the biological benefits. Now, this is the area where, unfortunately, the Indian agricultural science is very much short of microbiologists, particularly soil microbiologists. There are a lot of industrial microbiologists coming from the traditional universities, but in agricultural universities, the proportion of the microbiologists, soil microbiologists required is not there. It is very low. The research effort is also extremely low in this particular area. Whereas the entire natural farming is not only knowledge intensive, but it is microbe intensive. It is the microbes which will help in sustaining the nutrients, in maintaining the physical conditions of the soil, and in also sustaining the crop health and crop productivity. So the biological component of the soils needs to be given due attention, and that is possible when you do the multi-cropping. When you do the multi-cropping, each crop has its own association and dissociation of microbes associated with that particular roots. Rhizosphere has a different impact of each crop. So there are rhizobium which automatically get associated with the leguminous crops. There are many non-rhizobium bacteria which are fixing nitrogen now. It is known, well known now, that it is not limited to one genus or one species. A large number of bacteria have the capability for nitrogen fixation. So where is that all microbial diversity has gone, which was naturally existing in our soils? It's by external inputs. Most of it, the populations have come down or actually completely wiped out from the soils. So we need to study, and that's why in the natural farming, one of the principles is bioinoculation. That means at least you give the seed inoculum to the soil, which with the help of the natural farming, without external disturbances, it will be able to multiply and support the crop growth. And there are a number of papers on organic farming as well as natural farming in globally, that the fungal bacterial ratio also is an indicator for soil health. So then we also have mycorrhizae, extremely important. When we see this mycorrhizae in the crops, the VAM, that is vesicular arbuscular mycorrhizae, have a lot of a role in the crop nutrition. Sometimes they act as a filter attached to the roots. They do not allow the excess nutrient to go, and they make a sustainable supply of nutrients. And the contribution of the mycorrhiza is extremely important, we understand. And then in agricultural chemical fields, we don't find mycorrhizae at all. So how do we instigate? How do we inoculate? How do we enhance the mycorrhiza is one of the points. Then, as I told you, most of the soils have are excess in India, both for phosphorus and potassium. So when either through application or through natural occurrence, they are there. So when this bacteria, solubilizing bacteria is available there, then it can continuously harvest that the otherwise unavailable phosphorus and potassium, it will be made available to them. So this is also possible because of the multiple diverse, multiple crops that we cultivate. It will bring and enhance the microbial growth, and the nutritional aspects are taken care. In addition to these, in the natural farming, normally we find very less biotic stresses. The reason is that there are pest antagonists in the soil, like the Pseudomonas, the Bacillus, the Trichoderma, and several entomopathogenic nematodes. And there are several other microorganisms which are not only antagonists but also beneficial. And it's not only microorganisms, there are certain macroorganisms whose structure, population structure, completely changes. When you don't till too much, you follow the 4 principles of the natural farming, and diverse cropping system exists, then your earthworms will huge increase in population of earthworms happens. The beneficial insects will be there in the soil, as well as the bees number will increase, as I already told you. And in countries like Australia, that the beehive people not only take honey, but they charge for putting the beehives in the gardens, in the horticultural gardens, because that will increase the pollination. So people pay for it to the extent of $1,000 to $2,000 per hectare. They pay if you put the number of beehives required in that particular fruit garden, and then their fruit yield increases. You get the honey, and also you get the payment for pollination services. So the bees are also extremely important, and their number increases in the non-chemical environment in the natural fields. And the multi-cropping system, you have the flowering spread over the season. It's not that one time flowering for about 15 days, 20 days flowering is there. Rest of the year, there is no flower. That's not the case in this case. The flowering is also spread over the years. The crops and different types of honey you are able to extract from the multi-cropping system. So this is how the biological systems are also extremely important. They get improved in the multi-cropping systems. Then you have the crop-water relations, very interesting. And then we have already evidence that the almost 50% water requirement in dryland, low rainfall regions happens in natural farming. That means if you have a single bore well, you can double the area of cultivation if you follow the natural farming. So there is an evidence of data for this thing, and it's not only the water requirement is less, since water supply and the electricity supply are policy linked issues in the government today. The energy requirement also comes down tremendously because your borewell use is almost 50% less because of the natural farming. Then if you see how to be capturing the moisture, all of us know chickpea has a very plastic surface on its leaf. And then if you go early in the morning in the summer and see the chickpea crop, droplets will be oozing out and contributing to the soil moisture. No irrigation or maybe one irrigation is required for the chickpea, but otherwise it has a mechanism to capture the moisture from the air, and it gets condensed on the leaf surface, and that is enough for its crop growth and give productivity, besides being a leguminous crop, giving the nutrients also. So as you know, most of you might have heard that already even for human drinking water is now the air, the moisture in the air is being utilized. In countries like Israel, it has become a common technology that relative humidity available in the air is converted into a drinking water. So this kind of technology already perfected by our diverse crops. These crops can actually capture the moisture available in the air and use it for the crop productivity. So, but how do we use them? How do we mix them in our cropping system and utilize the moisture available without any rains during that season, in the Rabi season also? How can we cultivate crops is a matter of very interest to the science, which we need to further take it. And then we have the also the temperature gradient. So we saw that its earth cooling happens by natural farming. It's not just a theoretical thing. There is around 500 plots in Anantapuram. We're following the natural farming. Data has been taken from 100 farms. There is a significant down of the soil temperature. Soil temperature has gone down, and then if in a bare soil, in a soil that is fallow, the temperatures are high after the crop harvest. But if you cover the soil, then the temperature, soil moisture as well as soil temperature are coming down. Then there are also inbuilt mechanisms in different crops. How do they open the stomata or close the stomata and control the evaporation and evapotranspiration in the crop canopy? So how the relative humidity in the crop canopy is different from the air relative humidity within the canopy, the RH is different. So the evaporation and evapotranspiration ability and efficiency varies for different crops. How are we going to utilize this plant's ability in our natural farming? Then we have the root depth. We have the also root ability to absorb and adsorb the moisture in the diverse crops is different. The root depth is definitely different. Root mass is different. How are you actually, maybe by the month of January or February, you may not find top 15 centimeters, there may not be any moisture. The temperature may be normal. But when we go a little deeper, that means deep crops are cultivated, then you have the soil moisture available in the deeper layers, which is helping to keep the soil cover and also to keep the green cover on the soil. Subsoil capture, subsoil water also is a different mechanism operates in the natural farming, and the subsoil is available for crop growth. Then if you see Navadanya cropping system, if you try to follow as a case study, then you can see that the main crop is the groundnut, millets or sunflower. They are harvested in less than 100 days, 3 months. First intercrop row is harvested in 4 months. Second intercrop row is harvested in 6 months. The border crops are millets on border rows. Why millets? So there are limited crops which are mixed and in small proportions for self-consumption or sale. So then additional crops like leafy vegetables, many vegetables in small niches for household consumption are there, which means that this Navadanya cropping system, where in the area where only once in 4 years you harvest a good crop in the districts like Anantapuram. But if you follow this, not only the self-nutrition and family nutrition, but also additional income comes from this. And it's now some 40-50 hectares initially, now has gone up to the 2,000 hectares in the last 3 years. And it is catching up because now people see a distinct advantage of following this Navadanya system. One of the main constraints many times is, since this natural farming is knowledge intensive, access to knowledge and access to material like seed is also important. So if you want Navadanya seed, Navadanya cultivation to be improved, the packets of the Navadanya seeds have to be made and distributed. Experimentally, it was done in Anantapur. It is a huge success that the people who received the knowledge and also the seed material, they started getting back to the Navadanya system, and they are reaping the benefits of this Navadanya system. You can see that in the Navadanya, there are 5 to 10 crops. The design is given here in the rows. The time and height of the crops is also different, and it is designed to harvest the sunlight. And as I told you yesterday, genetics into environment, into design, into management. This is all clubbed into one system, that is Navadanya system. Not only Navadanya system, most of the ancient multi-crop systems in India that are being cultivated, that were practiced, has got this. Normally, what we say is G into E is the productivity, and we focus mostly on genetics and forgotten environment. But now, studying the ancient multiple cropping systems, we come to know that the design, location-specific design is extremely important. The management is also important. Then it really helps the system. Then if you see net returns, it may not be very high. Per acre, if you are getting 60,000 rupees income, it may not look lucrative when you compare with some of the irrigated monocropping systems. But we must remember, this is an area where very poor soil and very less rainfall and otherwise kept fallow, or once in 4 years only you harvest groundnut. Under such conditions, the improvement of the income, the soil health, and the human and animal health are also improved by following this system, in addition to the income, which otherwise is zero or negative, leading to the farmer suicides. And then you have also portion gardens, that means nutrient gardens. So there are certain things here, some examples are shown here, which are the nutrient gardens. And then in this layout, for 1 cent of land, even in the natural farming, in the AP community natural farming, mostly focus is going on for the kitchen garden. How your kitchen requirements are met from the kitchen garden, which is just your backyard. Then when your portion or nutrition increases, then you get a healthy food without use of any chemicals and fertilizers. You are able to harvest in a small area, in 1 cent area. Then you are attracted to the natural farming system and you start cultivating in the main field also. So even for these things, you have a certain method of sowing and a certain design of sowing, so that you continuously get the vegetables throughout the year, starting from the small lettuce crop to the drumstick crop, which will give the continuous supply of vegetables required. Then you have the yield estimation for 1 cent of land is given here, and then the total yield is more than 3.7 tons. And then it's very interesting that the yield is harvested up to across the year. It's not just at one harvest time. Then you can see the diversity of the vegetables that are being grown there, and then they are available for food of the family. Then in case of tomato, there is an interesting case that mixed intercropping happens, and the row intercropping and multi-cropping, where different types of tomato are grown, and then a continuous harvest of the vegetables is also possible in these cases. Then you have the ridge gourd, then cowpea, leafy vegetables, but they are within the kitchen backyard. You are able to get the main crop is tomato, but other crops can be harvested in a small area. And if you see how the backyard poultry is integrated into the natural farming. So as you can see that particularly in Northeast India, the backyard poultry has made a lot of difference in their protein, meeting their protein requirement. So small units which with which are integrated into agriculture, because the poultry also doesn't require separate nutritional supply, external supply. It is already available there through these systems. Then multi-layered crops from fruit crops are there, and per block how many layers are there, how do we plan it, what is the distance, and what is the cropping days. So most of these details are documented. At least for Navadanya is a case study given, because a good amount of study for the last 3 to 4 years has gone into it, and now it's catching up in a larger areas. You can see the flowers, the floriculture, and of course something like the perennial castor also can be part of it. Lot of vegetables, banana, and the ridge gourd. Many things are happening. And if you see in one case, the income that they see by the end of the year, like from May to November, is what 153,000 rupees is the income that is documented, and it's a conservative estimate. Still higher yield is possible, and this is one case study where this is documented, that you start your activities in the May, by the end of November you get per acre more than 153,000 rupees, which is a good income in poor soils, degraded soils, and low rainfall area like Anantapur. Then also the recent invention of the, I should say it's a breakthrough invention in natural farming, in AP community natural farming, is 365-day green cover. In Anantapur, people did not believe that is it possible to grow throughout the year. We were very low rainfall, and without rainfall, how all the 365 days green cover is possible in Anantapur. Now there are 500 recorded, documented case of the farmers with their names registered in the APCNF website, and about 101 out of these 500 have been designated as the A-grade plots with very good green cover, and also the income. Both are actually clubbed here, and you cannot believe that this is Anantapur in the month of January or February. This kind of harvest is happening in Anantapur. You can imagine how this breakthrough invention of 365 DGC is going to bring a difference to the Anantapur dryland farmers. What is actually 365 DGC? The 365 DGC is nothing but you actually PMDS they call pre-monsoon dry sowing. In the month of April or the first week of May, they complete the sowing. Absolutely no rain, pre-monsoon. And then they also pellet the seeds. The pelleting seeds with the clay, with the ash is extremely important, and they can remain viable for more than 6 months. Even if there is a very small, a thick mulch is also important part of 365 DGC. A thick mulch, pelleting the seed, and pre-monsoon drying, and 400 kg of Ghanajivamruta. These are the key principles by which in a very, very scarce rainfall zone like Anantapur, you can bring lush green crop, and then also you can enhance the environment and soil quality over a period of time. People are amazed and still in a stage where they don't believe it. So seeing is believing, and then we have the contact numbers, individual case study data available for this community natural farming following the 365D cover. And also it attracted the attention of the international scientific community. The University of Reading and as well as the ICAR from Kenya are designing experiments to study its effect. In some of these fields, they have found that 30 to 40% of greenhouse gases emission is less in the natural farming past. It's a publication, peer-reviewed publication by ICAR. So there is a lot of evidence in the next, I think in this month only, the teams are coming to design their experiments to collect the data by the international community. Unfortunately, our national research system has still not very enthusiastic. I hope with the intervention of the policy intervention at the national level, this will catch up by the national research, national agricultural research system also. So what is it that finally I would like to conclude is what are these multi-cropping systems are diverse farming systems. Where to do it? One of the major objections given by the formal chemical agricultural believers is that if you follow the natural system, your food and nutrition security will be adversely affected. What is our food security? We have two major crops, the rice and wheat. So in the rice, if you see, there are about 11 agroecologies where rice is cultivated. About 40 million hectares is grown in India. Rice alone is grown. Out of these 40 million hectares, it's almost 30% of it is grown other than fully irrigated system. That means updated upland ecosystem and mixed ecosystem and borewell ecosystem. These 12 million hectares of rice also has potential to be converted into the multi-cropping system without adversely affecting the food and nutritional security. And as such, 52% of India is rain-fed. Then we have a large ground to play to bring the multiple cropping system and the farming system into these areas by following the latest principle like 365 days green cover. We will be able to improve the livelihoods and also bring sustainability for not only for the soil, water, and also the air that we breathe. Then what is this? Do we have one system that is applicable to the entire India? No, it has to be location specific design. India is as good as the diverse world exists within India. We have the extreme ecosystems present from Jammu and Kashmir to Kerala. So even within a state, you find 5 to 6 distinct ecosystems. So there cannot be one plan, one design which is applicable to the entire India, not even one entire state. So the location specific design based on the points that I have already covered, it needs to be taken into consideration when we have to design or promote the multi-tier cropping system. Then how do we do it? Increasing the awareness and submitting the scientific evidence that it is working, and then capacity building and resource access. Whatever you say, finally, the seed should be available, knowledge should be available, the hand holding is required. This resource access is also extremely important. And then when the scientific system or national agricultural research system should consider more farmer-led on-farm research. It's not that you do in your regional station or AICRP centers. You please increase your percentage of farmer-led on-farm research, which will be directly applicable to that particular area. So the research should be location-specific research and farmer-led. Then it will penetrate very quickly and it will help the nation. And integrating the government organizations, non-governmental organizations, farmer networks, and FPOs, farmer producer organizations, working together will make a lot of difference. And to achieve this, you need a lot of social capital building, which is also extremely important. And also developing market systems, which you have also lectured today on the market systems. So these, how is known and what is to be done known and where it is to be done is clear. And when to start this natural farming? Now. The answer is now. We start now. At least the awareness capacity building should start now, which I am extremely happy the National Resource Organization has taken the lead, and most of the experienced people, the leaders in agriculture are now attending this, more than 200, but our target is much bigger and larger number have to be done. And why we should do this? We have to do this because the more than 60% of our population depend directly or indirectly on agriculture. and inclusive growth is not happening, and equity is not happening, sustainability is not happening, all-round sustainability, agricultural sustainability, soil sustainability, water sustainability. All these things are the reasons why we should promote multi-cropping system and also enhance the natural farming with the multi-cropping system or increased biodiversity in agriculture. Thank you very much for your patient hearing, and this is what I already explained. And thank you very much. That's all I would like to share, madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful presentation. It's very informative and very useful for present this particularly for our natural farming.